Welcome back to the Richest YouTube channel. In today's class, we are going to learn how to make the beautiful flare yoke gathered tear dress. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. This is something you like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so this is like what we want to make. It's a tear dress. So for me, first I'm going to be making mine in a short length. It's just going to stop around my knee area, but if you want yours to be long up to your full length, it's still the same method. You just need to calculate it well. Okay, so this is the total measurement that I will need. It has 3 tiers. This is the first one, the second, and the third. And if you notice, I want the first one to be longer than the second and third. So we have the first one, the second one, and the third one. The total length of this dress from my shoulder is going to be 42 inches. Okay, so for the yoke, which is the flare yoke, the upper part, which is the one that is going to be on this part, I want it to be around 5 inches. For the first layer, I want it to be around 15 inches. Okay, so now if you 15 plus 5, that's going to leave me with 20 inches. So if I deduct 20 inches from 42 inches, I'll be left with 10. 40 inches from 22 inches. From 42, I'll be left with 22 inches. Okay, so now this 22 inches, I'm going to share it between these last two, which means I'll have 11 and 11 here. So if you add all of this together, it's going to make up the 42 inches total length that we need. So you need to decide this first before you start cutting. So if yours is going to be a long length, say let's say 60 inches, all you just need to do after deducting the yoke, for me, like I said, I'm using 5 inches for my yoke. So if you deduct 5 inches for your yoke from 60, you are going to have 55. You can share the 55 equally by just dividing it into 3, or you can share it in a way that you give a bigger portion to the first layer and then you share the, just distribute it anyhow you want. So I'm going to be treating this first layer first, which is the flare yoke. And to do this, remember I said I'm going to be working with a yoke of 5 inches. So I'll add 1 inch to that for hemming, and that's going to leave it with 6 inches. So it's a full flare, like I said. So for that, I'm going to fold my fabric into 2 first. Then after folding into 2, I'll go ahead and fold again into 4. So for the neckline, I'm going to be working with 4 inches all round for both front and back. So if I mark 4 inches round for my neckline from here, that's what I'm going to mark first. So your neckline can be wider than this if you want. It can be smaller, but I want to work with 4 inches. So from this pointed part, just like we cut out our normal flare, I'm marking the 4 inches, and then I'm going to connect together. So after marking that 4 inches, the next one now is to mark the actual length of the yoke, which in this case is 5 plus 1 inch allowance, which makes it 6. So here I'm marking 6 inches all round from where my neckline stop. Remember, this is the neckline measurement. So here I'm marking 6 inches, and I'll cut 2 of this because I want to add interfacing to the Ankara. So I will need the lining as well. So I'm using the same fabric as my main fabric and my lining. You don't have to cut 2 if you feel your Ankara can carry the weight very well. I want it to be a little bit structured, especially on the shoulder area. So that's why I'm going to be adding a gum stay to assist with that. So now I'm going to connect this together as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it. So I'll cut 2 of this and fuse my interfacing. Okay, so I have cut it out. This is the neckline and this is the yoke length. So this is what it looks like now. When you open it up, it's going to have something like this. So like I said, I have 2 of it. I'm going to fuse interfacing to 1. So depending on how wide your neckline is, if your neckline is not wide enough for the head to pass through, you can just open it at the back so that you can fit a button or whatever to wear it easily. But if you feel that your neck measurement is okay for your hair to pass through, remember it's a free flare dress, then you don't have to do that. Okay, so I have gone ahead to add interfacing to the lining. So what I did was to make sure to notch the center front and center back by folding it back into 4, and then I placed a notch. So here where I have my notches and my center front and my center back respectively, and like I said, you can just decide to slash the center back open. So let me just slash it so that I can teach us how to do that as well. So for the center back here, you can just decide to slash it open, especially if your neckline is small. So here you just go ahead and slash one side open, and then you're going to turn it out neatly. So now we have our center back slashed. I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. I'm going to put it on fold side. So what I'm going to do now is to take it to the sewing machine and turn it. I use them to turn each other on the neckline area, and then for the lower part I'm not going to turn it completely because I'm going to be inserting my gathers into the center front and center back. So I just need to turn the part that is going to fall on my shoulder area and a little bit on this side. So here now I'm placing them on each other, and then I'll go ahead and sew the neckline completely. I'm going to sew this center back as well so that it can be neat. And then for the hem, I'm going to try to sew from here to my center front. So for my center front, okay, I'm going to be sewing this first layer to parts of what I have on the center front here. Please don't get confused. It's going to be like this. This is our yoke. Okay, so if our yoke is like this, all this part is going to be on the shoulder area. This is my center front, and this is where I'm going to be inserting my yoke. So to know where you're going to be inserting your yoke, you just need to measure from your chest area, from one chest to the other. That's where your armhole area is, from where your arm join the body. So for me, that measurement is 11 inches. So if I divide the 11 inches into 2, that's going to give me 5.5. So I have to centralize it. So from my center front here, I mark 5.5 to this side and 5.5 to this side. So when I'm turning, I know that I'm not going to turn up to this part for both front and back. I hope you understand that, because that is where I am going to be inserting the gathers. So you can just go ahead and notch that area. Okay, just put it on fold and notch those areas. So you do that for your front and back. Again, there's a modification that you can do to this. You can leave it slanted like this, or you can just try to modify what you have here. Let me turn it to this side so that we'll see it better. Okay, so it starts from here to here. That's where my 11 inches runs through. So I can leave it slant like this, or you can just make it a little bit straight, just like this, and then you cut this slanted part off. So you're going to do this same thing for the back as well. So like I said, if you feel that it's going to sit properly even when folded like this, you can leave it, but for me, I just want to create a little bit of balance. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And here, remember, I did not have allowance for the slash that I did here, so I'm just going to hold it a very tiny, it's not even going to be up to 1/4 of an inch, so that I won't have so much shortage here. So what I'm doing now is to mark where I'm going to be fixing the gathers for the back as well, and then I'm going to trim it together. So now I've put it on the both front and back, and then I just want that part to be a little bit straight. You can see that I didn't go as much as I went the first time, so I'm just trying to make it straight as much as I can. So you can see what I have there. So it is a little bit better than what I have earlier. So now what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and turn, and then I'm going to be leaving those places where I'm going to be starting, which is here for the front, and here for the back as well. So I'm going to sew it, and as you can see, for the neckline I turned it completely. You can see I sew it round. Here as well I turned it completely, but for that part where I'm going to sew, I'm yet to trim the other side. Remember, I trimmed the lining, so I'm going to use this to trim the main bodies as well. You can see that that part is opened. This is for the front and this is for the back. So the back, because we slashed it, we have 2 separate pieces. So now I'm going to trim the main bodies just like I trimmed the lining, so that they will be equal. Then I'm going to turn it out now and iron it flat. Then we'll move to the lower part, which are the layers that we're going to be adding to the yoke. So for the layers, the first one is 15 inches like I explained. So I have cut it out, and the width that I'm using for this, the width that I'm using is my bust measurement plus 20. My bust is 40, so I'm adding extra 20 for the gathers that I'm going to have at the center front and center back, and that is going to leave it at around 60 inches. Okay, so you can make it bigger depending on what you want. So here I have a fabric of 16 inches in length. You can see what I need actually is 15 inches, and I will need half an inch to sew it on the upper part and half to sew on the lower part. That was why I added that 1 inch extra to it. And the width that I used, okay, so like I said, the width is my bust measurement, which is 40. Then you can multiply that by 2, and then you have 80 inches. But for me, I just added extra 20 inches to it, which makes it 30. So I have 16 by 30 inches, and then I folded it into 4 for front and back. I'm going to be slashing it into 2 so that I can have my front and back separately, because I want it to have a side pocket. So if you are not having a side pocket, you may not slash it. So this is my center for both the front and back. I'll just notch it so that it can guide me on how I'm going to gather it. Okay, so now to create your armhole, you just come up by whatever you are using for your yoke. In this case, I'm using 5 inches. So here my armhole, I'm working with 8 inches. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, and then to create the armhole curve from this open part, which is the side, I'm just going to come in by 4 to 6 inches, and then I'm going to create like my armhole curve there. So here I'm going to take my scissors and then create the armhole curve. So you can see now that I have my armhole curve. So I will go ahead and hem this armhole because it does not have a slip. So you find a way to neatly hem your armhole. You can use a bias for that. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and gather this to fit into the space. I have turned this as well, and I've ironed it. So you can see this is where I'm going to be sewing the center front. So, and this allowance, you can see the allowance that is folded inwards. I'll go ahead and use my iron to fold it in like this, so that after gathering this, I'm just going to top stitch on it and fix this inwards. So what you're going to do now is the 11 inches that I used to measure out this part, I'm going to gather the front separately to 11 inches and the back. So my gathering is just going to be on my center front, towards the center front area. Okay, I'm not going to be gathering this side, so I'll just gather a little bit here and then leave the other side. And once I have 11 inches, I will sew it inwards. So I want to take it one step at a time. So I will do this for both of front and back, and I'll bring it back to show us what we have. I've gone ahead to gather it. You can see the gather is mostly at the center front, and then I just inserted it inside that allowance, that space that I did not cut out. So you can see what I have. This is for the front and this is for the back. So you can see I just closed the back a little bit there so that I can sew it, and then this opening is going to make it easy for you to wear. So I'm just going to fix like a bra hook here so that it can close up by the time I wear it. So this is what the front looks like, and this is what the back look like as well. So remember, I slashed it by the side. I said I want to fix a pocket, so I've already gone to fix my pocket as well. The tutorial on how you can fix a side pocket like this is already on the channel. So because I wanted to fix a pocket to this side, that was why I made the first layer long, so that I made it long enough to contain the pocket that I am fixing. So now the next thing to do is to add the last 2 layers. So remember, we said it's going to be 11 inches each. Okay, the first one is 15, the next is 11, and the last one too is 11. So for the second one, I have a fabric of 11 inches here. So I didn't make it 11 inches exactly because I'm going to be sewing on it. So I made it around 12 inches, you can see, so that I will use that to sew on the upper part and the lower part. and then I've notched it. So the width that I used for it, the length is 11, the width that I used was 80 inches. Okay, I got the 80 inches by just adding 20 to, remember this was 60. The first one was my bust measurement plus 20, which was 60. So now to the 60 I added another 20, and this made this 80 inches. So for the last one I just added another 20 to the 80, and that made it 100. So the last one is 100 by 11, the second one is 80 by 11, and this was 60 by 15. So what I'm going to do now is to gather this second one to the first one, and then I'm going to gather the last one to the second as well. So for the last one, you can see I'm gonna head to hem the lower part so that it can be neat. So what I just need to do is to gather it together now, and the dress is ready. So I'll do all of this now, bring it back to show us what we have. So the last two layers are joined as well now, and this is what it looks like on the mannequin. So that's the neckline, the yoke area, and these are the gathered layers that we have. You can see how simple it is to make this. I hope you enjoy making this with me. See you in the next one.